Hello viewers! The first program in this series focuses on how is our society governed. You will have the opportunity through this lesson to learn more about our Constitution and how the general elections are organized and held in our country. In our previous lessons, you have learned that man lives in society and thereby derives many advantages. Living in society clearly means living in an organized and disciplined way. And one of the most important aspects of this organized way of life is that there are rules to abide by. Just like at home and at school, there are rules to follow. In the same manner, people living in a country have to abide by certain rules. The rules of a country, therefore, are known as the laws of that particular country. These laws are written down in a document or book called the Constitution of the country. The Constitution is the supreme and most important law of our country. The Constitution of Mauritius exists since our independence in 1968. It tells us about the basic or fundamental rights of the citizens of Mauritius. That is, those rights that every Mauritian has, irrespective of his race, color, sex, religious beliefs, or place of origin. A few of these basic rights are, firstly, freedom of expression, that is, the right to express oneself within the limits set out by the law. Secondly, the right to life. And thirdly, the right to protection of the law, amongst others. Our Constitution also tells us what type of government our country is supposed to have and the way in which the government may be formed. In fact, Chapter 1, Section 1 of the Constitution of Mauritius states that Mauritius shall be a sovereign democratic state which shall be known as the Republic of Mauritius. In a democratic country like ours, it is the people themselves who choose the ones who will govern the country. And this choice is made in a very well-organized way, that is by means of an election, as mentioned in our Constitution. When a general election has to be organized, and who is responsible for its organization? In fact, the organization of the general elections in Mauritius is governed by a law known as the Representation of the People's Act. This law contains all the details about when and how general elections should be carried out. It is the Electoral Commissioner who has the task of organizing elections in Mauritius, under the supervision of the Electoral Supervisory Commission. Let's listen to the Chief Electoral Officer.
It is the Electoral Commissioner's office that proceeds with the whole organization of elections, which involves, amongst others, the printing of ballot papers, the setting up of voting centers, and the recruitment and briefing of election officers. It is worth noting that the officers who work for elections should be government officers. The organization of elections comprises three main steps. First, nomination. Second, voting. Third, counting. Nomination is the process whereby candidates submit their forms of candidature, known as nomination papers, duly completed and signed, to the returning officer. That is, the officer who is responsible for the elections in each constituency. This exercise is done on a particular day, known as Nomination Day, which is fixed by the President of the Republic and is carried out at a particular place called the Nomination Center. Why nomination? Because each candidate has to be nominated by at least 8 registered electors of a constituency in which he or she wishes to stand as candidate. In other words, his nomination paper has to be signed by at least 8 electors. At the same time, he must also remit a deposit of 250 rupees to the returning officer. Now let's come to the second phase, that is the voting process itself, or polling as we usually call it. Voting is the process whereby registered electors go and vote at voting centers near their residence on the day of election, which is also fixed by the President of the Republic. Each elector enters a voting room and is given a ballot paper. Then he proceeds to a voting booth where he marks his votes in secret by putting a cross in the space against the name of the candidates for whom he or she wishes to vote. But he or she must vote for 3 candidates only in Mauritius, not less, not more. In Rodrigues, he should vote for 2 candidates only. Then the voter folds his ballot paper so that his votes cannot be seen and places it in a transparent ballot box found in the same voting room. All precautions are taken to maintain the secrecy of the vote and to ensure the security of the voting center. Let's come to the third and last phase, that is the counting. Prior to the counting, that is at the close of voting, all ballot papers which are contained in the transparent ballot boxes are sealed and transported under police escort to a main center called the counting center, where they are kept overnight in a sealed room guarded by the special mobile force. At 8 a.m. on the next day, the ballot boxes are opened in the presence of the candidates. Then the votes are counted in their presence and that of the counting agents in several rooms called the counting compartments. The 3 candidates, or 2 in Rodrigues, obtaining the highest number of votes are then declared elected.
For the purpose of general elections, the island is divided into 20 regions known as constituencies. Each constituency may include a number of villages and towns and has a certain number of electors. The island of Rodrigues is the 21st constituency. Let's have a look at one of the constituencies in Mauritius. For example, constituency number 14, Savane and Black River. It extends from the village of Suriname to the region of Palma in the town of Quatre-Bornes and includes the villages of Chemin Grenier, Baie-du-Cap, Tamarin, and so on. Who has the right to vote in a general election? Any Mauritian citizen aged 18 and above can vote, provided his name appears in the electoral register. In other words, he or she must be registered as an elector. The electoral register is a document which contains the names of all Mauritian citizens who have registered themselves as electors. The register is updated every year with the names of new electors, that is, citizens who have reached the age of 18. The Electoral Office also strikes out the names of electors who have migrated, passed away, or who are no longer qualified as electors. Let's have a look how a ballot paper looks like. It contains the names and other particulars of all the candidates for that constituency in alphabetical order and serially numbered. Next to each candidate's name, there is the name of his party, if any, and his or her symbol. And next to the symbol, there is a space where the elector is required to put his or her vote by putting a cross. The length of a ballot paper depends on the number of candidates contesting or taking part in that particular constituency. At a general election, an elector must vote for 3 candidates only, not more, not less. If ever he or she votes for more or fewer than 3 candidates, his ballot paper will not be counted. In Rodrigues, however, electors have to vote for 2 candidates only. This means that at the end of the elections, there will be 3 elected candidates in each of the 20 constituencies of Mauritius, and 2 elected candidates for Rodrigues. In all, therefore, there will be 62 elected candidates who will become members of the National Assembly. In addition to these 62 elected members, 8 others are chosen according to a system called the best loser system. The population of our country is divided into 4 communities, namely Hindu, Muslim, Sino-Mauritian, and the general population. The best loser system helps to guarantee a fair or just representation of each community in the National Assembly. Normally, the elected members of the National Assembly represent their constituency for a period of 5 years. However, if a member of the National Assembly dies or resigns, or his or her election has been declared null and void by a court of justice, a by-election, that is, élection partielle, is held in that particular constituency to replace that member. As from the year 2002, the island of Rodrigues has its own assembly known as the Rodrigues Regional Assembly. In all, the Rodrigues Regional Assembly comprises 18 members. However, it is worth noting that there are still 2 elected candidates for the island of Rodrigues who represent their island at the National Assembly. In this lesson, we have learned that the Constitution is the supreme or most important law of our country. Fundamental rights are respected irrespective of race, color, sex, religious beliefs, or place of origin. General elections are normally held every 5 years. For the purpose of general elections, the country is divided into 20 electoral regions called the constituencies, and Rodrigues constitutes the 21st constituency. The National Assembly consists of 70 members in all, of whom 62 are elected and 8 nominated according to the best loser system. Since 2002, the island of Rodrigues has its own assembly called the Rodrigues Regional Assembly. In the next program, you will be able to know more about the functions of the National Assembly. Until next time, it's goodbye from us.